the Team Talk Football Show with myself, Daps, Mayowa, and Viz. And it all should be coming up right about here somewhere. All the names and everything. So yeah, guys, another week. How are we today?
I know you're not good.
yeah. As a Manchester United fan, I've had a rough week. It's not been the best, but you know, we live and we persevere.
Okay, we'll get into that. And you're a
Chelsea fan. I'm good spirits.
How did you find? We're gonna go straight into it. How did you find the Arsenal Chelsea?
I couldn't do that every single weekend, if I'm being honest. But I mean, as a Chelsea fan, I've never had that before, where you're on your edge, you're like, "Wow, what's going on?" Like, I feel this is probably how City fans used to feel when their project just started, where they would try and win games like 5-4 or 7-6. So for Chelsea, we just usually either beat teams or, you know, get like a 1-0, 2, especially Mourinho is like 1-0, 2-0.
Yeah.
So to see a match where you blast the whole opposition away and then you start conceding goals, it was like, bruh, didn't really understand it. But no, it's good. It's football. I mean, you can't complain about having boring football for so long, and then when you have good football, complain about it as well. So,
and obviously in the game, we spoke a little bit about Chelsea last week, but as a Chelsea fan, how are you finding Sarri's approach to games? Like, do you see changes, or do you still think that you need a bit more time for that?
There's definitely changes, but I think the main thing is ultimately when you're implementing the system, it takes time to, one, convince people, and two, to get up to scratch. So you can see where the system is not working the best of where it should be working. So when he was at Napoli, he had Alan, Jorginho and Hamzik, and now he's got Jorginho, Barkley's in there at the moment, and Kante. So Kante's job description has changed completely, and it's something he's getting used to, because really and truly he should be in Jorginho's role.
Yeah.
But Jorginho is there for that. So that will take time, but on the whole, it's convincing, and we've gone from having 5 at the back to 4, and that's not those two wouldn't have been our second or third choice last year.
Yeah.
Centre back. So to get Luiz and Rudiger into the system will probably take a bit of time too.
Okay, and he mentioned Barkley. In that some might say that this year is a season where Barkley needs to step up and show why they bought him. And from what you've seen of Barkley so far, how do you think he fits into this Chelsea team?
In terms of where he's slotting in at the minute, I think that he's just making the best out of a bit of a disjointed situation. So. I was actually quite impressed with his, especially his first half performance. I thought that he did well. I thought that he got on the ball. I thought he was brave. He looked way fitter than I've ever seen him before. And actually, when he was jogging off at half time, my man's lost so much weight that I was thinking he looks like an old man now, drawn out. But so yeah. I think Barkley did well. Like I said, I think he was brave to get on the ball in a game of that magnitude, having just kind of come into the team, and he's trying to integrate himself into it. And like I said, things don't seem to be gelling quite as well as they could be, or they should be potentially at Chelsea.
Okay, cool. And some might say, obviously, they've gone 2-0 up, but then, you know, Arsenal then coming back to get to 2-2. Some might say that there's still a lot more work, and maybe even worse than they were before. Because Chelsea aren't used to giving away 2-goal leads. And
I wouldn't say worse. I think what that game showed was the two new systems in the Premier League, and that both teams are fairly confident with how their system works, but there's loopholes. I mean, Emery's system is not based on conceding 3 goals. Yeah. And they conceded 3 goals. But ultimately, the way they got the 2 goals was how Emery likes to play football. The second goal, I mean, for Arsenal fans, they would have loved it, because it was the passing of what they were used to under Wenger, but it was with purpose. The cutbacks in the game from Arsenal as well. Every single time, get to edge but cutback, you guys should have had 6 goals at least. Yeah. And it shows that the players seem to understand the system. It's just about the confidence of continuing with the system now and changing some of your players, because Ozil doesn't deserve to wear a shirt at the moment, the guys.
I mean, on Ozil, it was interesting that Gary Neville said how Emery's come out and publicly said that Ozil needed to do better than what he showed in Man City. And then he's given him the chance again against Chelsea. And when he's seen that he's not doing it, he's dragged him off. Do you think that's the correct approach to managing, or do you think he should just wait it out kind of thing?
I don't think that he should wait it out, but I think that Ozil is in a position where he's been mismanaged for quite some time. I think that the managers that he's played under in England, so Emery now and Wenger prior, have both kind of succumb to pressure from the media, like all these calls for, he needs to work harder, he needs to show his application, he needs to display his enthusiasm via this kind of English ideal of tenacity, and I get that, but you don't buy Ozil for that. If you want that type of player, you need to go out and purchase that type of player. So in answer to your question, I suppose, like, to summarize, I think that it is brave to drag Ozil, but I also think that it's short-sighted to play him expecting things from him that he doesn't provide. And to be honest with you, I thought that I saw Ozil from like a completely neutral perspective. I felt like I saw him getting through more work in that Arsenal game than I have done in recent years. So
I've definitely noticed that, and I do think that it will take a bit of time for the Emery system to really come into full effect, but it was an enjoyable game, nonetheless.
I'm on the flip side to that, though, in terms of what you're saying, because I feel that in terms of Arsenal, right, I feel when that fixture list comes out and you see City, Chelsea, and it's the World Cup going on, I think that he probably looked at it and said, you know what, even if I had a squad and had them for 5 years, those are 2 difficult games. It's a new squad. I'm treating this like pre-season, and if the rumours are true about that midweek game with Palace, I feel like he's told the guys, listen, there's 3 games here, earn your shirt. Because for me, it seems a bit weird that Xhaka starts twice and doesn't perform, and Torreira comes on twice. So it wouldn't surprise me if next week Torreira starts, because you've had 3 games to prove yourself and you haven't. And I feel that's where Ozil is now, that he's 2, potentially 3 games. Emery hasn't probably seen what he expects or what the system needs, and he'll probably change it possibly.
I think it is that it's interesting that you raised that point, because actually I was of the same opinion, but maybe looking at it from a slightly different perspective. In that I agree that it's strange to see Xhaka start 2 games, do abysmally in the first, perhaps understandably because he's playing against players that just far exceed his skill set. Like, no offense to Big Man, because he's a pro, but but then for him to start the second game, that's cowardly for me. I think that the gaffer, if you've come in and you're saying, look, I'm setting my stand, this is the standard I expect. If you don't play to this standard, you won't be playing. Then just start the man that did better last game. Play it based on that form, and don't then go ahead and say, because irrespective of that result on the weekend, even if Arsenal would have come back, I don't believe that Xhaka would have started next game. If Arsenal would have went on and got pumped, I don't believe Xhaka would have started that game. So just make the big decision. Do you think
it's similar to how so let's say like a Liverpool and Palace? Yeah. So do you think it's similar to how Henderson found himself out of the team, and they had their midfield who performed, and now Henderson is still out of the team, as opposed to just fitting him in?
Oh, 100%. Because I mean, Milner's come to form. And it's like, okay, ultimately, I've got to go with the players that, 1, understand the system, 2, make the system work, but 3, are playing well. Yeah. I think there's no point putting Henderson there in sentiment. And that's where the Arsenal situation is interesting, because are you putting players in on sentiment because it's going to make the fans feel good, or it's going to make people that stop talking, or are you picking a team to win a game?
Can I? Go on. I think that where Emery's come from, a league where he's expected to win everything. He is managing stars who are, I would imagine, have huge egos and demand a certain brand of man management. I don't think the kind of like the hard hitting, say, Sam Allardyce approach to management would work with those kind of stars. However, I think that he's mistaken in applying that same ethos to his tenure here at Arsenal, or the beginning of his tenure. Like, there's nothing wrong with rocking this boat. Like, this boat has capsized, it's spun, that's why you're in the job. So yeah, I think that he is doing what he is, picking players based on sentiment and based on wanting to appease both the media, the fans, the skeptics, everyone else, whereas he needs to just focus on the job. And the job, it says, please play the best players in their best positions, and that's not what I think he's been doing.
Okay, so moving on from that, I totally get your point. But back to Liverpool, do you think Henderson should continue to be out of the team? Because some might say because he's captain, they will try to force him back into it and eventually play, and that's when the sentiment comes into it.
Yeah, no, he's club captain. I mean,
that's fine.
It's like with Gary Cahill. Gary Cahill wasn't playing last year because he wasn't the best choice for the team. And especially where, I think in teams where you have systems going, you have to play the best players. Like City do it, Chelsea are trying to do it. In teams where it's not based on like a system, it's based on just kind of getting a result, the best players might not play. So if you look at something, for example, United, personally, I don't think you should play like Ashley Young and people like that when you've got capable fullbacks. But if you're going for a result and you need something, and the manager says, "No, I've identified this is what I need," he will do that. But in a situation where it's system based, you need to play your best players.
Okay, and I heard you just
only because I understand that the point being made and actually do agree with it, but I think that the United situation is a bit different, just because even when he's attempted to play the quote unquote best players in their positions, they've underperformed. Like the Luke Shaws of this world, he's underperformed. He's returned to to the club overweight from injury on two maybe 3 occasions now, and that's just not good enough. You can't perform at the optimum level if you aren't concentrating on everything that pertains to that. So if you're not taking care of your diet, if you're not sleeping well, if you're not making sure that you're up to speed with everything that comes with being a professional footballer, then you're just not going to play. And Ashley Young did really well as well.
So it's similar to sort of like Pep's situation, where Pep's got his system, and everyone knows that they have to be fully fit, they have to be absolutely performing at their top in order to get their shirt. And it's evident from the game that they're having, where they're winning 6-1. So looking at that game, and obviously Aguero got a hat-trick, how would you put Aguero there as the top striker in the league so far?
In the league?
Not so far, but in general.
In general.
When he's on that form.
When he's fit, there's no one that can really compete with him, if we're being honest. And this is coming from year in, year out. And even when he's not fit, he's still getting 20 goals a season. So I think he's unfortunate because he does look like he's a dedicated professional. But ultimately, if your body has discrepancies, sometimes you're going to get injured. But the guy's cold. He scores goals for fun. He scores all types of goals. Some of the goals he scored on the hat-trick were just filth.
And obviously we spoke a little bit, so we're not going to go too deep into Man City again, but how do you stop City? Like, what could you see possibly being their undoing?
Liverpool showed how to do it last year.
But not every team, you would say, is Liverpool.
And this is the problem. Liverpool were able to beat City because the way they play allows them to do that. I don't expect a team like Arsenal to say, okay, we're going to press like Liverpool did, because it doesn't come naturally to them and they're not set up for it. Whereas Liverpool play like that week in, week out, so they can have the confidence to apply such a game plan.
No, that is a strong point, and I agree, but I disagree in a sense in the part that you said not all teams can apply that. You, as a professional footballer, if your manager demands you run for 95 minutes, go and run. So I think that it's this kind of mentality or this belief that because this is their style of play, they can't play in any other way. No, because if they got sold today, they'd have to go and play differently.
I totally get that, but in regards to, because it's not just running Liverpool do. I was watching a game last week in the sense that Salah picks the ball up on the edge of the box and was running from left back. Robertson knew straight away that he had to run and become centre forward. It's
that all because of the mindset of total football.
Yeah, they understand it down to a T. So it means that when you're playing against City, you can continue to do that. Whereas, for instance, let's say like a team like Wolves, because Wolves had a good result against them in the Carabao Cup last year. If they were to do that, I don't think necessarily if that situation occurred, the player that's out of position knows to go here, and then if the ball doesn't move forward to that position, it breaks down.
That's a failing in the standard of the Premier League then, because I think that teams in other leagues that are, maybe more accustomed to varying their styles of play and being forced into new patterns of play in the game, where sort of like your man management within yourself has to be top notch. I reckon that they're just more switched on. Maybe in England, in the FA bred style of training, it's almost as though you're taught that this is the way you play. Anything outside of this,
it's wrong.
Don't know, mate.
So does a lot of it come down to the management, just the management? Because
I just think that Pep is better than everyone else.
At the end, okay, put Pep aside for 1 sec. So we've got West Ham. West Ham lost to Bournemouth 2-1, and they've now got to the point where they're literally chucking money, buying all these players who are top quality players. They've added Wilshere, they've added Anderson, they've added that Russian Yarmolenko. They've added Yarmolenko. So like, you would think that these players have that understanding, but it's still not clicking. Does that come down to the manager? Or
you did.
Is it just time?
You mentioned all those players, but you mentioned a few in particular where you still got, for some odd reason, their centre mid field on the weekend was Snodgrass, Mark Noble and Jack Wilshere. You can't expect to have all of this like flamboyant football if the core of what you are is FA level 2 written in 2002 by a guy that never played football.
Yeah, you can't. Exactly. He's playing.
Okay.
You know.
So just before we round up on this segment, just a quick word on Liverpool Crystal Palace. Obviously, Liverpool's won 2-0, and one of the stand-up performances was Virgil van Dijk. What do you guys think that he's added to this Liverpool team?
Do you know what? I'm not a massive fan of Van Dijk. I appreciate that he's a top quality centre back. He isn't in the sort of the mould or the style of CB that I prefer. I do think that he has added.
Sorry to cut you, but don't you think that since they brought him in?
That's what I was gonna allude to that. Yeah, so I do see that Virgil van Dijk has come in. I believe that he has bought into the hype around himself, which he's been fortunate enough to have that result in him kind of like elevating his game. I think that he's showing true, like real, genuine leadership. His composure appears to be contagious. Where times in years past they're quite scatty and a bit erratic at the back when the genuine pressure is applied. I think he has added like a true element of calm that has transcended across the team. So yeah, I do see his benefits.
But everything you just mentioned would create the sense that he is a top.
I remember I said he's not a player in the mold that I prefer, but I understand he's a top level CB.
What's your mold for CB though?
For me, I prefer maybe selective urgency. I don't think that he has another gear. I think that he plays at this pace, and if he is rushed, I don't think that he can sort of move out of this Rolls Royce style of defending.
Like a Rio.
Yeah, exactly. Where Rio can coast, but he can also hit you with a smash and grab.
Okay, cool. Well, that's our segment on the weekend fixture just gone. Next, we're going to be talking about problems at United. Should be a nice one. Guys, welcome back to Team Talk Online with myself, Dapper. We've got Mayowa here, Chelsea supporter. We've got Viz here, Man United supporter. Quite fitting, because now we're going to get into the trouble down in Manchester.
Yeah, I can sense the enjoyment in your voice as you're introducing this segment.
There's no enjoyment. I just
no.
Do you know what it is? From a neutral.
You're not neutral though. You support Arsenal.
Okay, as a neutral, someone who doesn't support United, I can see that there's so much going on there, and you know you've got on one side you've got Mourinho underperforming as a manager, and then you have him not being able to get the best out of his players, which obviously comes under the whole mode of of him being not performing as a manager. But then you also have this undertone of Mourinho versus Pogba. I'm going to come to you first, Mayowa. When you look at United now, and obviously they've lost against Brighton, a game that you would expect them to win.
Yep.
with the calibre of players that they have. When you looked at that game, losing 3-2, what were your thoughts on the game, and where did it go wrong?
It's weird because post everything that happened, you kind of look at it, and as a Chelsea fan you go, we've been here with Mourinho before. So it's kind of, I can relate to how you're feeling because I've felt like that before. But in terms of the actual game, I feel one of the biggest issues was, if you look at what United are a big club, I'm not afraid to say that because they are a very prestigious club. If you look at what their values are, which are hard work, making sure you win your personal battles and dominating teams, they failed to do that. And it's not the first time they've failed to do that. Usually United go to places and make sure they get the job done. There's been games across the last 2 seasons where they don't get the job done. Seville was probably a great example where they went and just thought that because we're United, the name itself is going to score 3 goals for us, but they have to go on the pitch and do it.
Okay, quick question on that, and I'm going to come to you. Quick question on that. You say that they're used to dominating team, they're used to winning their personal battles, and that's a thing that Mourinho also brings to a club. So whenever you, as a Chelsea supporter had Mourinho, you knew that your team would go out, you're going to win your personal battles, you're going to dominate and you're going to be compact, and that's what Mourinho does. So would you say it just comes down to the fact that because Mourinho's still Mourinho at the end of the day. Would you say it's a personnel thing then, that they just can't implement what he wants, or do you think it's just maybe it's just dated?
I think with Mourinho, I feel that it's not just him. I feel that it's part of the play, it's part of him, because he's one of these people where we spoke about other teams and we talked about they play with systems. Mourinho never really plays a system. He plays to an objective. An objective is to win the game by all means possible. And if you look at how United played against Brighton, I understand he's still doing that, because I mean, when they were losing, he put Fellaini on, put attacking players on, and started launching the ball. So his objective was, we need to score a goal anyhow, but there's no system around that. And I feel that if you look at the players he has, these are players that you're supposed to build a team around. So someone like Pogba, someone like a Lingard, they both play similar positions, so it's a bit weird. Someone like a Martial and a Rashford, these are players that they're not kind of like Mourinho, like henchmen, like a Fellaini or like a Makelele, something like that. These are players that usually would fit into an idea and they would play to it. So when you've got them in United and then you've got them on and then you've got someone like Eric Bailly just lumping the ball long, these players that's why they disappear in the games, because they don't understand what's really going on there.
Okay, and as a United supporter, and you obviously watched games very closely.
Yes.
Would you agree with the point of maybe the personnel just isn't quite in the Mourinho mode, or would you say it's a deeper rooted problem?
I agree with both points. I have no objection to either. I think that the personnel are ill-fitted to Jose. I don't think that there is a cohesion between manager and players. I think that also Mourinho is underperforming and is ultimately unhappy himself within the job, and that is being translated in the type of performances that he's able to muster from very talented young footballers.
But where do you feel like the unhappiness in the job actually comes from?
I think that Mourinho is living vicariously through the memory of his former self, if that makes any sense. So he's literally he is. You remember the that interview where he announced himself as the special one? Yeah. I think he genuinely believes that he's still this person. The game has progressed light years since then, and because the thing is, let me sort of give a little bit of context to my own opinions. I have been not staunch Mourinho fan, but I was really excited when he was coming to the club. He was off the back of some horrible managerial experiences, one that we're completely unaccustomed to. When he came in, I thought, yeah, boom, big name, finally, we're back, we're good. No. This pre-season just gone has probably been the one of the most distressing periods of my United fan life, because for the first time I was seeing a manager that was openly showing us he doesn't like this job. He doesn't like the players. He doesn't respect the sanctity of the player-manager relationship.
Would you say though he's doing that because with Mourinho you always get the sense that everything he does is calculated?
This is what I thought.
So what? But would you say that he's doing this to show that, look, I've got my targets, I've got my players. Like the current core is not good enough to challenge or to push on. This is what I need. So by coming out and saying, I remember there was a pre-season game you had, and they were saying, why would Sanchez be happy when? Look what's around.
I thought that there's deeper.
It's deeper. I you know what the thing is? I've always thought that Mourinho was a big picture man. So me in my sort of mediocre, mere mortal mind, I wasn't able to fathom the labyrinth of this genius. No, this guy's got no plans. He's got no plans. We just assume that because he speaks like this and, he's using words cultured. No, bro, you're not cultured. You're any Portuguese pulis. I'm sick and tired of this guy. He needs to leave my club. He needs to go from my club. No, genuinely. I'm actually, my emotions. Okay. No, I'm genuinely in a bad place.
I'm feeling it.
Cool. Because he has to go. No. Shall I tell you why? Because imagine this. In the middle of pre-season, this joker is saying, I've got no strikers. What do you want me to do? No one asked you about this, I've got no strikers. There's no forwards. No one. Who am I going to play? In a press conference with Martial chilling here with you. Nah. Why are you trying to alienate people? Why?
Do you honestly believe, and I'm going to come to you on this one, do you genuinely believe that Mourinho is done with like this job and is just trying to set it up for him to just leave? Do you feel like he's done?
I'll be honest. I think his head's hot, and the reason why I say this is because if we look at his career progression, it was Porto, and then he came to Chelsea. And like I said earlier, like I'm a Chelsea fan through and through, but you have to respect the institution that United are. United are a very big club and they have very big rivals. Chelsea's biggest rivalry, in terms of if you look at fan culture, is Tottenham. That's the big one, and then people would argue that it might be Arsenal. He's competing right now with Guardiola, who's his nemesis. He's also competing with City, who are the neighbours next door, and he's competing with an arch rival Liverpool. When the fans look at the opposite football and they go, that's crazy, why can't we do that? That's pressure. The fact that Guardiola has managed to get it right at City is pressure. So
in the Prem.
Okay, so can I, on that point, I'm, historically a Mourinho fan too. And I would say that with Mourinho, I don't think there was anyone who thought that Mourinho going to United, you'd see Pep style football. Like we all knew, but we all knew Mourinho's football is that defensive, just set it up just to, like you said, get the objective done and go. Yeah. And he's staying true to that. So when you're saying Pep and everything else, isn't that a bit, but he doesn't do that. Like he's showing exactly what he does.
Yeah, so I don't think United fans would have expected that from him. And this is where, for some United fans, when they talk, I do feel a bit sorry for them, because in their head, see Mourinho means we're going to win trophies. However, Guardiola's cracked the code at City. And when it's like, when you have like gift or something and then you see what your friend got for his birthday and you got like a PlayStation 4 with loads of games, you're like, I want that as well. I genuinely feel that United fan base are looking at City and be like, you know what, why can't we have this?
But at the same time, I get your point, but I would say back to that City, it's the whole thing where Guardiola has an open checkbook. But this pre-season, I'm gonna come back to you on this one. This pre-season, it's maybe looked like he hasn't actually had the backing in the transfer market.
He hasn't. He has come out and publicly said, he asked for 5 players. The 5 have not been forthcoming. Woodward has basically said, well, look, we don't think that 5 players are needed. We think that you can challenge with this crop of players. The bottom line is, if your boss says this is what it is, don't sulk and sabotage the club based on some selfish ideal that you are harboring. Talk to your wife about that. That's not our business. I want you to come to your job and perform. No, it's stressing me, this brother.
I can see that stress. But like, do you feel your current squad is good enough to win the league under this is what I was saying. Under different management, I think that I would be looking at a far happier crop of players, and I as a player myself, or as a person that loves football, or just as a human being, I'm aware that if you are happier, you perform better. Now, you cannot perform well no matter what's being said behind closed doors. He could be arm around the shoulder, don't worry, he's just saying this for the media. It doesn't matter. You have a family, you have friends, you have supporters, you read, you know what's happening outside in the outside world. You don't want your manager, even if it is just some cloaked way of inducing like fan support or whatever, I don't know what his mad plan is, but you just don't want him coming out and publicly slating you, no matter what's going on behind closed doors. That doesn't incentivize players to come out and perform at the highest level.
It
just
doesn't.
And it's the same, I would say, with the whole Paul Pogba situation. So he's come out initially saying Pogba there's no reason why he can't play like that or something like that during like how he was in the World Cup. Like, and translate that form, and that basically if he doesn't, it's down to him. And now it seems as if it's broken down even more, and Mourinho's saying stuff to him, and Pogba's coming back saying, talk to my agent, which I think is just madness.
But that is the culture you are at risk of birthing if you communicate with the media in a different way.
But it comes down to it, because obviously United can't just have this situation where Pogba, who's been named captain, right?
Yes.
Is he your club captain?
No. He hasn't been. Valencia's still club captain.
Valencia, okay.
And anyway, I'll get
So Pogba is your captain right now, whilst your club captain is not playing.
Injured, yeah.
So you've got your captain, your present captain, and your manager seemingly at loggerheads. United have come out and said no, that's not the case. But obviously they're going to say that. But what's going to happen? Like, how do you get past that? Like, because you can't keep that sort of energy going. So what's the best solution?
I mean, talking about solutions sort of indicates that we've decided this is all true. The claims are, this argument is speculative at best.
But you also have to look at the fact that Pogba's agent has come out and he spoke out against Paul Scholes today, but at the same time he's making noise, which is.
But that's the agent's job.
Yeah, no,
because that noise increases Paul Pogba's net worth.
Exactly. So some might say you do that when you want to make him more valuable, when you're preparing them for the exit, or
I mean, potentially, but I just don't. I think that the type of player Paul Pogba is, whether any of this, even if he wished to leave now, I still think that he would be playing to the best of his abilities, regardless. Not as a result of him loving Manchester United or having respect for the manager or even the fans. I just think that the type of team that Manchester United are at the moment, there are enough of his friends or people that he gets along with well enough that would dictate. I'm not gonna mess these lot about and make have them looking rubbish because I want to move. I can play out of my skin and still nick this move. It makes no difference. I don't need to sulk and walk around them and I think he's played well recently.
That was going to be my next point. You looking outside in, how have you rated Pogba's first two games? Because in the media and a lot of pundits, they've said he's come out and he's played really well and would you agree that he's started the season really, really well?
I feel that he's doing what he can, especially that team. He's doing what he can do. I think ultimately he's just won the World Cup. He hasn't had much of a break. I know it's no excuse, but he's come back and he's captaining the side, and I think he's completed 2 full games.
Yeah,
I can't name another player in the Premier League that finished about. Maybe Lloris is probably the only other one. Kante has Kante. Yeah. Well, Kante.
Kante doesn't count. Kante. Yeah, exactly. That's two men.
I expect that from Kante. But I mean, he's come out. He's wearing the captain's armband, despite all the speculation. He's come. I mean, the second goal against Brighton came from his passing to Fellaini. Yeah. He's been involved. I mean,
he slapped the pen.
Yeah, slapped 2 pens. He's got 2 goals. Yeah. So he is doing what he's trying to do. I do feel bad for him because I mean, he's had to come out in a press interview and say that I don't feel like I performed the way I should have. We let ourselves down. The reason why I found that a bit weird is he saying that because that's the pressure of the captain's armband and he feels that how a captain should behave, or is he doing that because he genuinely feels like that? I don't think he does. I feel like he feels like, I'm doing these guys a favour. There's people that went World Cup and they're not even here yet. I shouldn't be playing. I should be resting. Lukaku's getting to come off after 60 minutes or come on after 60 minutes and he got to semi. So I feel it's what happens in modern day football. A lot of talking goes on and then everything just homes in to the individual, but I thought he's performing all right.
Okay, and so obviously that situation is yet to play out with the transfer window closing next week abroad. Obviously it's already closed, but Pogba can still go. I don't really think he'll go. But we'll just have to see how that one plays out. But very quickly, do we see Mourinho finishing the season at United?
I think it is heavily dependent on his presentation, even down to body language and the appearance of application. I think that obviously results will play a massive, massive part in that. And also how much pressure players start to apply in regards to wanting to leave. If players are, if Martial, Pogba, and even one other big player both that demand moves, we could be looking at the end of his tenure, just because I don't think the club. I think that those are 24, 25-year-old. No, wait, Martial's what's he? 20, 21?
It must be about 22.
22.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, he's about 21, 22.
Yeah, so anyway, players with that's you can get 10 years out of a player managed properly if he's happy. With Pogba, massive money, massive asset, and massively influential. If he really begins to make noise and start talking about no, I want to go.
Yeah. Well, we'll just have to see. It's all up in the air right now. Hopefully, it gets cleared up soon. But yeah, guys, that's that segment done with the debate. Nice little heated one. Your passionate one.
He's got to go.
Passionate one. But We'll be back with this week's start, sub, and sell, and we've got a good one for you guys. Guys, welcome back to Team Talk Online. This is a good one this week. Now we're going to get into the start, sub, and sell. This week we have Thiago Alcantara, Toni Kroos, and Sergio Busquets. So we've tried to match them up in terms of ability, status, everything. So going to start with you, Maiwa. Who would you start, who would you sub, and who would you sell out of the three?
It depends on what team it depends on what team it is. In all seriousness though, in terms of those three.
At Chelsea right now.
At Chelsea right at Chelsea right now. Yeah. Okay, cool. That makes it better for me. So starting at Chelsea. I would have to say I'll start Thiago, because I've got Jorginho. If you get what I'm saying. If I had Jorginho, I'll start Thiago because he brings this je ne sais quoi, this flair that a lot of players don't have in the world. Sub would have to be. A sub would have to be Busquets, A sub would have to be Busquets and I sell Kroos.
And you sell Kroos?
Yeah, because what Busquets brings, he's one of those players where you could watch the whole game or not see him, but you could watch him and see the whole game. His football intelligence is amazing. Like, he finds pockets. I think he takes beta blockers because he doesn't feel any pressure.
Yeah.
Is there any way we can do that so that I can say that quote, because that was a good quote. I got trying to steal that one.
That was poetic.
He's just a beautiful footballer, and he's one of those guys where ultimately, if he's not marked in a match, he will just pull strings and just make things happen.
So you would sub him,
I'd sub him.
And sell.
I'll sell Toni Kroos, but the thing is, Toni Kroos is an amazing footballer. But my personal opinion is, if you look at Madrid and how him and Modric just, I feel it's Modric that brings the best out of Kroos, rather than Kroos brings the best out of Modric.
Okay,
yeah,
cool. And who would you start, sub, and sell?
Do you have to do it in that order?
No. Oh, you've got to do start, sub, and sell. But
At United right now.
At United,
right? Problems right now.
Yeah.
With Mourinho as manager as well.
No. Just look,
I'll just let them all just.
You've got your three players.
Yeah, okay.
You know how they play.
Yeah.
Like, who would you forget any team?
For me, I'll be selling Toni Kroos. Goodbye, sir.
So you'll sell Toni Kroos off the rip?
With the quickness.
Off the rip, okay.
Not because I think that he's no good or he's trash, but the other two in question are like immeasurably more effective, more influential, and also just better to have in a changing room. In my opinion, I don't think that Toni Kroos offers much in the way of leadership on or off the field. Really, to be perfectly honest, I think that he's a very fortunate passenger. Might be a bit harsh, but he's very fortunate to play in the Real Madrid team that he plays in. If I think, don't get me wrong,
he gets away with. Is what you're trying to say? Like, he doesn't really have responsibility.
Yeah, there's not much that he does.
He's not like the player that they look to.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're selling.
He's an effective quarterback. I can hear you breathing, bro. He's an effective quarterback, and he does that job well.
Start and sub.
For me, I'll be starting Busquets for many of the same reasons as that you've alluded to. He's one of those footballers that can control the game from anywhere. The way he plays through the lines, that is one of the most underappreciated pieces of art in world football. His ability to initiate or create a transition from sort of like your third, our third, into the opposition's final third with one incisive pass is it's priceless. And then I'd have to sub Thiago. Unfortunately, he's one of my favourite footballers, to be honest. And when I heard the names called out, I was thinking, Thiago baller. But then I've realised he'd have to sit down. He'd be coming on though, 60 minutes, 110%.
Quick 30.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But yeah, on that subject, very quickly before we round up, just on Toni Kroos, some might look at him and say he's won pretty much everything. I think he's won everything. But do you feel? I think you might actually agree with this, that his last year or 2 years, he hasn't really hit the heights.
It's not even that he hasn't hit the heights. I think that he's been coasting because the teams he's played in have afforded him the opportunity to do that. He doesn't have to do anything apart from what he is really good at, and I don't feel that allows me to see what he's like when he's extended. He's playing well though.
Would you say that because he's playing in teams that that allowed him to do that. In the World Cup that just went past, when Germany weren't playing, he didn't really look.
Yeah, that's
like
when
the
you
Toni
want.
Kroos of old.
That's when you want your
shot for the
CM.
goal. I mean,
Oh yeah, he got the goal, but that's not. I feel like that's less performance and more just his ability.
individual.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. Great point. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, for me, with a World Cup like that, when your team appeared to be underperforming, I don't know what was going on behind closed doors, but that is when you want your engine room literally grabbing the team by the scruff of the neck and dragging him over the line, and he didn't show up at all in any way, shape or form, in my opinion.
Okay, guys, that is it for start, sub and sell. But let us know what you guys think. Hashtag TeamTalkOnline, and just let us know who you would start, sub and sell out of Thiago Alcantara,
Sergio Busquets
and Toni Kroos. Okay, we're going to go and come back, and we're going to look at the fixtures that are coming up this week. Guys, welcome back to Team Talk Online. Now we're going to just have a look at the fixtures that are coming up this weekend. We've got some nice juicy ones. So we have the big one that we're going to talk about, Man United Tottenham. That is a nice juicy one. Tottenham, are they kind of like Man United's bogey team right now?
Yeah. You could definitely make that point. I mean, we've struggled to get results against them. I think they beat us. We beat them at Old Trafford, but then they beat us at Wembley.
They're
That was cheeky.
How do you think that game's gonna go? Because you lot's confidence is low right now. You're not playing any sort of real dominant football. But is this one of those games where United just somehow managed to just pull it out of the bag like they did against, was it Liverpool last year?
Yeah, no.
Like they did against Liverpool.
I don't think it will be like that. I also don't actually
You guys
think,
are at home as well.
Yeah, I don't think that our confidence is low. I think that our team spirit is on the ground. But like in terms of our confidence and in terms of like our self-belief, I think that those players will be, go out there every single week believing that they're just the best, and they're just unhappy that they're being managed by somebody that they can't abide by. But in terms of confidence, no, I think that it will obviously be fiercely competitive. And I think it will boil down to individual battles. I don't think that the systems. I don't think it'll be one based on the systems. I think that what it will boil down to is individual brilliance and just like sheer willpower.
Okay, and just a word on. I'll come to you in a second, but just a word on me. I'm going to pick out Lindelof.
Yep.
He's not really had the best of times in the opening two games. Would you still persevere and start him along Bailly, or would you maybe bring in a Smalling?
I'd stay with him. I'd stick with him. I would
stick with him.
Yeah, I think that he played alright in our first game of the season. I felt that he and Bailly they did okay. I wasn't too dissatisfied. In fact, I would go as far as to say I was pleasantly surprised, just because my expectations of him are quite low. Yeah, against Brighton he was woeful, but we were woeful. So it's difficult for me to sort of for me to pinpoint him. I'd be biased to say, it'd be coming down to my own personal preference if I were to say he deserved to be dropped based on that performance.
And where do you see that game going, Tottenham or Man United and Tottenham?
It's a must-win game for both teams. I think Tottenham's situation, even though they've won 2 games, it's still a very precarious situation. I mean, the whole stadium thing, the whole fact that they haven't made any signings, all it takes is one event and the energy changes. And a lot of the players have come straight back from the World Cup. Yeah, Harry Kane has scored in August, but it's still the situation there still doesn't feel like one that everyone's sure of. And in the first game, I wasn't really convinced. The second game, second half performance was good, but it's the same as United. United looked good in spells in both games, but Leicester, I thought, played with great pace in the first game, and Brighton managed to get you on set pieces. So it's a game where both teams will be thinking, this game is where our season really starts.
Okay, cool. And next game I'm going to have a look at is I'm going to pick out Watford and Crystal Palace. So
big game.
In Crystal Palace, you have a team where they really did compete and perform against Liverpool, and they do have some danger players in Zaha, and I was just going to say Benteke. What do you think Crystal Palace need to but maybe just tell him that he needs to sit this out because of his form right now? His form has been not that great for a long time.
Benteke's been due the bench for a long time. He's been stealing a living over there at Palace for.
What do you think it is though with Benteke?
It's a talent issue. It's literally he's gone. I think that he was in a rich vein of form. His confidence was soaring, during his sort of little golden spell. And now what's happened is he's settled down into his actual persona, or his presentation now is representative of his skill set. I think that before he was just flying, based on confidence, and also an element of surprise. He was an unknown entity. People were unsure what to expect from him. Whereas now, where his confidence is much lower, he's easier to manage. And he will beat himself. He'll make a mistake, and he won't go hiding. But each subsequent touch will reflect on the loss of confidence.
Yeah, I think that showed. There was a chance yesterday, or when they played Liverpool, and he's not really had the best of games, and he's come in, and you had two players running. I think it was Townsend and Zaha. And he's lashed at it, absolutely lashed, and it just showed his confidence levels. Where do you see that game going, the Watford and Crystal Palace?
I feel that Watford have found an identity, and I think a lot of people have written them off because they're not too sure what to expect, so they don't really check for them. But if you look at their squad, they're playing a 4-4-2 with two decent strikers, Troy Deeney and
that partnership looks really good right now.
They look like they understand each other, but what they've got is that their players that they were rough diamonds are really coming to light now. Pereira looks like he's hitting good form. You've got Decore is a fantastic player.
He's his assist the other day.
Crazy pass.
Yeah, he's a player.
But you also have people like Will Hughes that a few years ago people were shouting and raving about. He just needs a good stretch of form. Nathaniel Chalobah, another fantastic player that just needs good rate of form. And when it all comes together in the system, I feel like they've got a good manager. They feel like they can win games.
So which way would you go in terms of picking out a winner for that game?
I feel that if there's not individual brilliance by Zaha, then Watford win that game.
Yeah. Okay. Did I get your?
No, I'm gonna go with Palace, just because I think that they performed reasonably well against Liverpool, and that sort of like the carry on of that form will reflect in their performance against Watford.
Okay, and are we finally going to see a win for Arsenal in this new season? They play West Ham at the Emirates Saturday, 3:00 kickoff. Do you think this is the game where we finally, because Arsenal obviously have come up against Man City and Chelsea, so it's very hard to implement your football how you want to when you're coming up against better teams. So do you think finally we can, against, with all due respect to lesser opposition, we can finally see exactly what Emery is trying to do and see Arsenal get that win?
I think this is the game we actually see their real starting 11. I don't feel like the last two games have been what he wants to go the season. I think now that the bedding in period's done, we see their real starting 11, and we see the determination that they showed in parts of the first half against Chelsea.
What do you think
they win?
The score will be? Do you think it'll be a big scoreline, or we might just nick it?
Well, based on what they did to Chelsea, if they get the same chances again, they can put through 4 in against West Ham.
Okay,
most definitely.
What are your views on that game?
It's one of those where I wonder if West Ham really rise to the occasion, and I'm not trying to be biased against Arsenal. I know that this may seem as though I'm just kind of putting a dampener on their chances, but genuinely I think that West Ham are due a performance. I think that they have got a squad that means, on their day they can give anybody trouble. And I think that they'll look at this Arsenal team and they'll think to themselves, no, nothing's changed. These lot still they still won't get through the kind of work that we will. They still will allow us to play if we want to. They're not gonna press us. They're gonna give us the ball. They still don't want to compete from aerially. They still will suffer from set pieces. They will still crumble if we have them under the cosh. No. Yeah, it may seem like that, but I genuinely do think that that's how a team like West Ham will view a game against Arsenal, I think that they'll understand they have very little to lose. No one really necessarily expects them to win. I think that players like Jack Wilshere will have a real point to prove, and will be given insider knowledge.
In saying that, what do you think the score will be, or who do you think?
I reckon it'll be 2-1 Hammers.
2-1 Hammers. You're going for an away win.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I mean, hopefully that's not the case, but interesting. And which game should I pick now? I think I should go with Newcastle against Chelsea.
It's a tough game,
big game as well,
and it's up at St James as well,
which is not a good place to travel to, after a hard game.
Very quickly, because we are running out of time.
Yeah,
where do we see that game going? Arsenal, Newcastle, Chelsea.
I reckon we get the result, but it's a hard result.
So you're going with Chelsea?
Chelsea win.
And you're going?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Chelsea. I think that Chelsea will win convincingly, 2 or 3-0.
2 or 3-0.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But yeah, guys, that's that segment done. Has anyone got anything that you want to plug? Obviously, you're involved in the podcast.
Yes. So podcast I'm on is Full-Time Podcast. So that's Full-Time Podcast on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and then Stoppage Time, which is on 360 Instagram. Okay,
cool. That's great. You ain't got anything there?
No, I'm not plugging anything. I just want everybody, all the viewers, to enjoy themselves. Thanks for for logging in. Thanks for viewing us. Thanks for giving us the platform. Appreciate you.
Great. And guys, don't forget to keep using the hashtag TeamTalkOnline. And until next week, guys, feel free to check out Counter Attack Podcast as well, guys.
Bye.